Right, good morning. Welcome to Elevenses. It should be show number 603. Why have I got 602 there? And it's not Sunday, May the 3rd, it's Sunday, May the 10th. So I've got that wrong. Anyway, today's show, what have we got for you? I've just got last week's news up. That's why I can't get that right. Hang on a minute. I know I've got it here somewhere. There it is. Yes, right. Okay. First stories. Sadly, rider's been killed at the Northwest 200. That happened on Thursday. I tuned in for the races, and unfortunately, there was only practice happening. 6-year jail sentence, though, for an unlicensed hit-and-run rider who killed an 80-year-old. Another hit-and-run rider has hospitalised a woman in Aberdeen. Police are hunting. The latest data reveals that there is a pothole payout postcode lottery. We'll have a look at where you are likely to get refunded and where you're not. We'll then have a look at some world and UK news in brief. Honda have recalled more than 12,000 CRF off-roaders in the US. I don't know if that's affecting UK models, but I would guess it probably will do. Harley Davidson, they outlined their latest turnaround plan. We'll also have a look at Royal Enfield's new plans for their range, 5 new models coming along, as well as existing model updates. Some stories on price cuts. Norton's Manx R V4 Superbike, that comes with a surprisingly modest tag. The MV F3R, that has also had a price reduction. And finally, Morbidelli are knocking £1,000 off their Big V twins and throwing in some free luggage. Toyota, they are showing off a hydrogen cell scooter, or at least they are showing off a patent for it, which delivers an easy swap system. And then finally, today we're going to the in-depth piece, which is about straight lining roundabouts and this argument that it's safe to do so if you're careful. And we'll look at that and we'll have a discussion about whether that's actually true. So make yourself a brew, grab yourself a biscuit, pull yourselves up a chair and stay with me for the next 45 minutes or so as I run through today's stories. Right, okay. Now I'm just going to start with a quick look at something that happened last week. So you may recall I mentioned that a video popped up on my YouTube feed asking if riders needed to be taught the no surprise approach to riding, and this was in fact the sort of opening screen of the video. Now, I watched it. It was attributed to PWR motorcycle training. So I dropped them a line and I pointed them at the work done by Duncan McKillop of myself on the nosurprise.org website, talking about the no surprise, no accident concept. And I actually get a reply a few days later from Phil saying that he had taken a look. And basically, he was quite impressed with the content and he reaffirmed what he thought was the importance of getting riders to think about what they are doing and what's likely to happen so that they're not surprised. So it's good to see that we are obviously on the same page here, and I hope our ideas can cross-fertilize at some point in the future. Right, now, here's another story that caught my eye this week. And let me just zoom in on that to give you a slightly better view. Now, Honda has set itself a very ambitious target. They want to cut global motorcycle fatalities on their bikes by half by 2030 and to eliminate them entirely by 2050. And it's going to reinforce that push in the UK here through a new partnership with Rapid Training. Now, the key idea behind the strategy is actually quite simple. They argue that most crashes are preventable. And Honda say that around 94% of motorcycle accidents come down to human factors, not the bike and not the environment. I'll come back to that in just a moment. So their plan addresses 3 fronts. First of all, better technology. Things like more advanced ABS systems, radar systems, even airbags. They want those to become more widespread across their range. Now, secondly, and this is one of the interesting points. They want to improve the wider traffic system, including vehicle communication. So vehicles basically can talk to each other, and even pedestrians, I say, to avoid collisions. But the third, and clearly this is a high priority for Honda, is the rider. And Honda say they see training and post-license education as critical, and that's where the UK partnership with Rapid comes in. The new coaching program is said to be open to all riders, not just Honda owners, and it focuses on high quality, small group training, both on road and track. Well, my thoughts on this. Well, first of all, I think it's going to be a very tough ask. Halving crashes involving Honda motorcycles by 2030, which, remind ourselves, is just 3.5 years off. It's one of those statements which, sounds vaguely plausible. But if it's achieved, it's going to be a sort of low-hanging fruit effect. You're going to pick off the easy targets first. I think it's almost certainly aspirational rather than achievable, and even zero by 2050, which at least is a quarter of a century off. That's almost certainly just a sort of an aspiration rather than a genuine goal. And the problem is that motorcycles cannot hold a rider in a controlled envelope at all time. So to get even close to zero, you would need to see an almost complete elimination of human error. And that's something that Honda's own data point says that is unlikely to be achieved by training. They themselves say that training reduces crashes by around 30%, and having looked at other data, I suspect that's on the high end of the results. And they say too that the effect decays within 12 months. So attempting to get a sort of even a 50% reduction on current motorcycle crashes by training is just about impossible, certainly not within the time frame that they're talking about. There are two problems here. We're talking about post-test training. What about all the learners? They make up a significant proportion of the rider casualties. What about the riders who don't want to take more training, who have got a license? They make up another significant chunk. The evidence suggests that riders who do take advanced training don't actually become involved in fewer accidents, just have different ones. So I'm entirely skeptical about the claim that they can get this done by 2030. It seems almost impossible. I won't say impossible, but as close to it as I think. It's a PR job, really. What about the environmental system? Well, the problem is that the roads punish riders when we get it wrong. When we fall off, there are hard things to hit. Now, Norway and Sweden, they've both trialled what have been termed forgiving roads under their sort of own Vision Zero planning. And these include sections of road where things like roadside hazards, boulders are removed, telegraph poles are set back from the road itself, and barriers themselves, the sort of things that separate carriageways, are made more motorcycle friendly. Even junctions have been simplified. But it works. It's proven to work. But how are you going to scale that up across an entire nation? So what could we really do? Well, the first thing I'd say is improve basic training. Test training is a patch on rider inadequacy, and most will never bother. And the truth is, no matter how organizations like the MCIA and sadly the average rider too want to ignore it, CBT is no meaningful preparation for modern roads. The course is essentially unchanged since 1990. That's 35 years ago now. And the current licensing system means that we've recreated the Hells Angels cadre of permanent learners, those riders who never actually take the training to get a full license. Now, the training to achieve a license is far from perfect, but it is infinitely better than picking up a CBT and trying not to kill yourself whilst riding around gaining experience. Second thing we could do is we could actually tackle motorcycle accident hotspots. We have the data now to know where motorcyclists crash. Looking at crash plot style maps is an easy way to achieve this. Now, the core claim that most crashes are human errors, yeah, maybe, but how often is a human error the consequence of the driving environment rather than poor skills or poor attitudes? I'm thinking here of poorly surfaced roads. I'm thinking here of roundabouts with confusing and conflicting markings that don't match the highway code. I'm thinking about junctions that have poor or non-existent lines of sight. The prime markings on corners to flag up risky corners is one inexpensive way of doing this. But perceptual markings, they've been around for at least 20 years. I was reporting them on, my well, before I had a webcast, I was talking about those on my Facebook page, and we're still just trialing them in the UK. We could use active warning signs that light up. Now, it must be 40 years since I first saw one of those in France. Motorcycle unfriendly barriers continue to cause injury and death, and the fix for those, the motorcycle underrun bar, has been around for at least 30 years. Spain attempted to bring in a mandate which would require all EU countries to impose underrun bars on corners where motorcyclists were likely to crash. The United Kingdom was one of the countries that blocked that move. And we've got no warning for one of the big gotchas that catches motorcyclists out all the time. And this is the decreasing radius bend. Now, just days ago, one of my regulars sent me a sad story of 5 youngsters who died in a car on a twisty road in the Ardèche, where they encountered a decreasing radius corner, had gone into it too fast, ran off the road, clipped the edge of a barrier and a stone wall, basically, which was inadequate for the bend, and went into a gorge. So that is basically what I think about Honda's Vision Zero, 50% reduction by 2030. I don't think there's a hope in hell of achieving that, and I don't think there is a hope in hell of achieving zero by 2050. Right, you let me know. What do you think about that? I'd be more than interested to hear. Right, okay, quickly on with some weather. We're into a fairly typical late spring weather pattern, actually. We've got with periods of warmer weather, just brushing off from the south coast here at the moment. It's a fairly mild day here in London, mixed up with some seriously cold snaps. And in fact, the coming week will actually be dominated by a northerly airflow. And this will bring some noticeably cooler Arctic air across the UK, and that'll bring a mix of sunshine and scattered showers, and those showers could be thundery at times, but watch out for frost in the north in exposed areas. Now this afternoon, northern Scotland sees cloud and outbreaks of rain. It'll be rather cloudy and windy across the south. The cloud here is just starting to show signs of thinning up, and there will be some light rain along the far southern coast, but it should turn sunnier right across the rest of the country. Now, tomorrow, the south should see some early sunny spells, but then that will give way to cloudy skies and showers. Elsewhere, dry, variable cloud for a time, clouding over with patchy rain in the far north later, and breezy too. Tuesday looks like cloud and light rain will be spreading southwards, but some sunshine behind it, but blustery showers again, and these are most likely in the far northwest. Windy on Wednesday, sunny spells, scattered showers, locally thundery, drier in the far south. Winds should start to ease down by Thursday, but it looks like another day of heavy showers and spells of sunshine with rumbles of thunder in a few places. So a real mixed bag of weather today. Right, on with some news. Now, sadly, the rider who died following an accident at the Northwest 200 on Thursday has been named as the Czech rider Kamil Holen, sorry. Holen, 48 years old, he crashed at Station Corner in the morning's opening Superbike qualifying session at the event in Northern Ireland. Now, he lived in Prague. He was a regular on the European road racing circuit. He was a multiple winner in his own Czech Republic. He first raced at the Northwest 200 in 2022. He previously raced at the Manx Grand Prix, where he won the Newcomers A race in 2012, and he became the first rider at the Czech Republic to win at that particular event. He also competed at the TT, and he had a best finish there of 20th in the 2018 Superbike race. Now, 26-year-old Jordan Goody, he has been sentenced to 6 years at Plymouth Crown Court after being found guilty of causing death by dangerous driving. I think I actually covered this story at the time. It was February 2024 when he was seen overtaking vehicles and performing wheelies moments before he collided with an 80-year-old local man, Dilwyn Durham, in Plymouth. Now, emergency services attended, found Mr. Durham with life-threatening injuries, but sadly he died in hospital 3 days later. And an investigation identified Goody as the rider of the KTM motorbike involved in the crash, and they recovered the bike, which had been hidden. Goody was duly arrested. He was charged with causing death by dangerous driving, excuse me, and during the trial, it was revealed that the off-road bike wasn't insured. It wasn't. He had no license, and the machine had no number plate. Now, Goody denied the offence, but he was convicted by a jury on April the 10th, and he was just sentenced. And as well as the 6-year prison sentence, he was disqualified from driving for 6 years, extended to 9 years until he passes an extended driving test after his release. Right, so another hit and run biker story. Not a particularly good image. It's from a Ring doorbell, and this is from Aberdeen, but you can see the biker making off there and the sort of white splodge lying on its side. That is actually the woman that he ran down, and there's a pedestrian with a pram at the top of the picture, sort of rushing to her aid. The 29-year-old woman was taken by ambulance to Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. Her current condition has not been disclosed. This incident happened at around 4:45 on Saturday, May the 2nd. So if anybody's got any information about that, Aberdeen Police would be interested to hear. Right, okay, pothole lottery then. If you've ever hit a pothole and been left with a hefty repair bill, I've lost count now of the number of tyres on the car I've had to replace, and I also have 2 dings in back wheel on the motorcycle. Where you live could make all the difference in your chances of success if you do make a claim. Now, the latest data reveals a clear, what has been described as a pothole payout postcode lottery. Your chances of claiming compensation for damage all depend on which local authority manages the road. Now, this is a bit odd because there is a key piece of legislation that is applied to pothole claims, and this is Section 58 of the Highways Act 1980. Now, the law gives councils a sort of legal defense. If they can prove they carried out reasonable inspections and maintenance, they can avoid liability for pothole damage by arguing that the pothole appeared after their last inspection and they didn't have enough time to repair it. Frankly, I'd say this is a giant pothole-sized loophole that councils are actually driving a bus through to avoid payouts. Now, if you do suffer damage, record the exact location. If you can do it using GPS, that will be fantastic. Don't just give them a street name. You'll pinpoint where the pothole actually is. You've got the what 3 words as well. That'll locate it to I think it's a 3-meter square, isn't it? Take some clear photos of the potholes, ideally with an object for scale. A ruler would be perfect, in fact. Photograph the damage to your vehicle and, crucially, report this to the council immediately, because this then starts the clock ticking and it puts them on notice, and basically it makes them a bit harder for them to deny responsibility later. Right, quick break while I have a sip of tea. As always, can I ask you to take a moment to like and subscribe to this show if you've not already done so? Every click helps other motorcyclists discover my content, or simply share the word the old-fashioned way by telling your riding buddies about 11ses. They can watch on catch-up. Remember, my latest riding skills articles are always free, and you can get all the links delivered weekly to your email inbox by subscribing to my newsletter at survivalskills.substack.com. Or you can use this QR code to jump straight to it, when the show's over of course. No spam, and if you don't like the content, unsubscribe at any time. Right, okay, so back with some news from around the world. Porsche, they are shutting down the e-bike subsidiary, Porsche e-bike Performance GmbH, just 4 years after its launch in 2022. The e-bike motor brand Fazua will also close just 4 years after Porsche took control of that in what was said to be a bid to develop and market electric drive systems that could power a new generation of e-bikes. Now, around 500 jobs will be lost, as Porsche says that the move forms part of a fundamental realignment in response to changed market conditions. You'll recall that KTM dumped their e-bike brands, which they bought during the lockdown boom in electric bicycles, as part of their own major financial reorganization about 18 months ago. Abu Dhabi are to ban delivery motorcycles on certain roads from May the 15th, now including roads with a speed limit of 120 kilometers per hour or more, which seems sensible, as I suspect a lot of these delivery riders are using mopeds. The measures aimed at raising traffic safety standards and improving traffic flow on vital routes. Presumably, the scooters are holding up faster traffic and ensuring a safer transport environment for all road users. Now, in Honda just opened the company's 38th global motorcycle factory. Turkey's a fast-growing market for motorcycles, in fact, and initially the plant will be capable of building 100,000 motorcycles a year, which could rise to a maximum of 200,000. Around 300 people will be employed at the factory initially, and it's also said it will shorten supply chains and increase manufacturing flexibility. Now, a driver has been arrested after trying to hit a boy who was riding his electric mini moto in a neighborhood of the US city of Cheney, Washington state. A short video clip showed the boy riding on the pavement with the car right behind him before the driver cut back into the road, probably at the moment when they realized they were being filmed. The boy was not injured in the incident, but his mother did tell CBS News her son had been shaken up. And also in the US, a Florida motorcyclist is facing charges of fleeing and invading law enforcement, reckless driving, driving at more than 50 miles per hour over the speed limit, and use or display of a weapon during the commission of a felony after a high-speed chase across county lines. So what happened? Well, on May the 3rd, troopers observed a motorcycle with an unreadable upside-down license plate passing cars at high speed. The rider, later identified as the 29-year-old Dalton Hubbard, he failed to stop. He said to have hit speeds up to 120 miles an hour, ran red lights before he was eventually stopped. And as you can see, he was wearing a helmet with bunny ears and reported to be carrying a handgun. Bunny ears in May? What was he thinking? Right, another quick break. If you enjoy these shows, why not become a member of my Ko-fi pages? Just follow the QR code and sign up. As a member, you get free access to the latest articles and the Survival Skills ebook shop with instant downloads of everything from free mini ebooks to ebook versions of my paperbacks. Become a one-off supporter and you'll open up the archive of over 1,000 articles. If you buy me a monthly cuppa as a subscriber, there's even more content to enjoy. Right, okay, so just a quick shout out then to the people who have supported me in the last few days. We've got Howard, we've got Nick, we've got Barry R, a new subscriber. Thank you, Barry. James, Kelvin, Hallam, and my good friend Anonymous. So if you want to join the Ko-fi page and benefit from all those 1,000+ biking articles, you know where to go. Right, okay, so on to some bike news. Let me just get the right picture up. There we go. We'll start with another recall. Now, Honda has just issued a recall affecting approximately 12,600 CRF off-road machines sold in the US between June 2024 and March 2026 because of a defective handlebar clamp. Now, this could allow the handlebars to rotate during riding. Now, this obviously is a serious hazard, and in fact, there has been one crash reported due to the defect, although no injuries were occasioned. And the recall affects the 250 and the 450 models. I suspect it will probably apply to the UK too. Now, next, I'm going to bring you some pricing stories, all of which I think tend to confirm my own thinking that motorcycle manufacturers have been getting seriously greedy on their new bike pricing structure. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say on that front. Now, Norton, we know that Norton Motorcycles has moved from UK control to being taken over by an Indian manufacturer, but they've just confirmed their base price for the totally rebuilt Manx R V4 superbike. You'll recall that they tried to fix the original superbike, but in fact they failed, so they just went back to drawing board and they rebuilt it. And this new machine, it now has type approval. It will go on sale from the end of May, and it will set you back £20,250. That base spec price is actually £4,745 less than this similar spec Ducati Panigale V4, though the top spec signature edition, whose signature that isn't mentioned, it's priced at £38,750 if you want to pile on the optional extras, and there will also be a price on application first edition variant, which kind of implies it's in the if you have to ask you can't afford it bracket, but that is quite a surprisingly low price. And moving from India to Italy, last week I mentioned that MV Agusta's 798 Brutale 800R Naked now starts at £11,500 on the road, which is £4,000 off the previous list price, which is a huge reduction. And its F3R sibling has also been repriced. Now, this is down at €16,900 in Italy. That converts to around £14,700, and that appears to be a reduction of around €2,000. So not as big a reduction as the Naked bike, but still fairly significant. And that takes us on to Morbidelli. These are the Chinese-built, Indian-branded bikes, and their manufacturer has slashed the price of their flagship adventure bikes, the T1002V and the T1002VX. And they will include a free aluminium luggage set for the bikes for Nout. Both bikes now start at, wait for it, £6,999 plus on the road charges. That's £1,000 off the previous list price. That's astonishingly cheap compared with bikes like the Africa Twin or the 1000cc V-Strom, just pulled two out of my head. The luggage kit itself is worth another £500 on its own. Now, as we've just seen then, Norton aren't abandoning their top-end pricing, but like MV, they are making the bottom end more affordable. And that's something that we'll be looking at in this fourth story. This is about Harley-Davidson, because they are also looking to achieve a return to not budget pricing exactly, but certainly more affordable motorcycles. And this is under a new turnaround plan that's just been outlined by their relatively new CEO, Artie Stars. Now, the headline shift is this: after years of focusing on premium high margin touring bikes for older, wealthier riders, Harley-Davidson is trying again to reset its direction. This time the strategy is pretty clear. It's to bring younger riders back into the fold via cheaper bikes, to broaden appeal to those with a slightly deeper wallet, and to make its dealer network work harder via what they are calling a back to bricks business strategy. So what is it doing? Well, first of all, it's going down market with an entry level machine. A new 440cc machine called the Sprint is coming later this year. It's expected to be priced at around $6,000 in the US. And that's significantly lower than this kind of headline price that people have come to associate with the Harley badge. Now, as you probably guessed, this isn't a brand new machine. The 27 horsepower single is already sold as the X440 in certain markets. It's built by Hero in India, and it's based on Hero's own Hunk 440, and that bike is actually currently on sale in the UK for £3,499. Now, it's unlikely that Harley will challenge the Hunk head on, but it does offer a kind of hint of the price point at which this new 440 Sprint is likely to be pitched. Now, for those who balk at the idea of a single cylinder Harley Davidson, at the same time, they are reviving the Sportster 883, and this looks set to come in at about $10,000 US, and that is under £7,500 at current exchange rates, though Harleys always cost more this side of the big pond, but it should still come in well under £10,000, I would guess. The machine reportedly is reviving the air-cooled pushrod V-twin engine that's clearly been brought up to Euro 5 plus emission standards. Now, this was something that Harley Davidson's administration, the prior administration, claimed wasn't economically possible. So presumably they've decided that spending the cash to fix that engine up to the new emission standards allowing them to relaunch this iconic name at a mid-price point that targets riders who want that Harley feel, but not the premium price tag that they've been selling at. So my guess is this investment may well pay off. I suspect this will be a very popular seller. But at the same time, Harley aims to feed on the factory custom trend. I just mentioned the Nortons, which come in various sort of price flavors. And the idea that Harley are adopting is to sort of sell the affordable blank canvas bike that because the more cash strapped of us can ride away on, but to make extra margin via the add-ons. And this is where the real profitability sits. These can either be sold as bolt-on extras, so you can buy them bit by bit and add them to your bike as you have some cash in the bank, or if you are feeling flush, you can order them fitted direct from the factory. Now, at the same time, the company also aims to improve dealer profitability and better match supply with actual demand. And this is something that dealers actually across the world have been demanding in the wake of various reports that they've been forced to take unsold stock, effectively warehousing overproduction for Milwaukee manufacturer. There have been cases in court in Japan where I think they were fined quite a lot of money, and I think in Germany too. Now, financially, the backdrop for Harley is still pretty tough. The company's latest quarterly results were weak. The operating income dropped from $160 million in the first quarter of 2025 to just $23 million in the same period earlier this year. Profits dropped sharply year on year. Revenues down about 12%. Trump's tariffs are still hitting Harley's imported components like semiconductors. Even though Harley builds most of its bikes actually in the US, they still have to pay on the imports. Now, that said, investors do seem cautiously optimistic. Shares actually ticked up slightly on the news, suggesting that the market itself does see some credibility in this direction. So in short, the plan is spend less, sell more, and increase profit. Like other manufacturers, Harley Davidson is trying to thread this very difficult needle, whilst attempting to keep its sort of heritage, its premium image intact, but also this need to focus on becoming relevant and affordable enough to attract a fresh generation of riders to become the Harley owners of the future. Now, company that's not struggling is Royal Enfield. You may recall that it's not that many years ago that they seemed pretty dead in the water. Their 50s designed bikes were actually struggling to sell even in their home market of India, and they were non-existent in terms of export markets. But in just a few years, they've turned that around completely. They've just risen to become the third strongest automotive brand in the world, and they have passed Audi and Ferrari to do that, according to the 2026 Brand Strength Index, where they now trail only Toyota and BMW, but they're not sitting still. They have a new product line, which has just been revealed. Now, according to media reports, they'll be introducing a Bullet 650, the Continental GT 750, the Himalayan 750, and a new Scram 450, all during this coming financial year. Reports also talk, rather confusingly, of a new Himalayan 440, but I'm not quite sure how that sits because they already have an existing 450. Now, on top of this, the updated range, 13 models will also be brought up to date. And this is all in response to the challenge being imposed by rivals like Triumph, Honda, Hero, Motorcorp, TVS, and Harley Davidson in the mid-size segment, not just, of course, in their own home market, but also on their exports to countries like the UK. Right, okay, so do have some news on one particular interesting machine today. Obviously, it's a quiet period for model releases at the moment, and this is a hydrogen-powered Toyota-designed Suzuki Bergman. So this patent has been published, and the link is that Suzuki and Toyota are both part of the Japanese HYSE hydrogen project. Now, unlike hydrogen combustion bikes, the scooter is fitted with a hydrogen fuel cell to generate electricity, and then electricity drives a motor which turns the back wheel. So a hydrogen cell only produces water emissions. Even when you burn hydrogen, as I keep reminding people who argue that it's a perfectly clean fuel with no emissions, it isn't. If you burn hydrogen in air, air contains nitrogen. Burning it combines nitrogen and oxygen and produces nitrogen oxide, NO and N2O, both of which are not pleasant substances. So it's speculated that there'll be a small lithium-ion battery on board too, which could be used to boost acceleration and could be recharged at least partly by regenerative braking. Now, we've seen a hydrogen cell-powered Bergman before. The Met Police actually had at least one on trial. I did spot it one day out on the A40. This design, though, uses a somewhat different fueling strategy, because the removable hydrogen canisters, instead of being rather fiddly to get out from their position right at the bottom of the machine, it allows them to be accessed easily on a pivoting or sliding mounting system. So basically, you pull the mounting system out, and then you can take the tank out and swap it over easily at a refueling station, if only we had some. Anyway, pluses for a hydrogen cell: zero tailpipes emissions, better cold weather performance than battery EVs, but the main challenge remains the same. The heavy high pressure hydrogen tank and the almost non-existent refueling infrastructure. Right, okay, so that brings us to the in-depth item today. Now, as you probably know, I tend to keep an eye on what other people are writing about motorcycling, and in particular about riding technique. So here's something I read recently online. Now, it was a response to a post which was explaining the standard highway code lines around a roundabout. And this particular article said, quote, "The advice to motorcycle riders is to straight line roundabouts when it is safe to do so, with care. Any drivers on the left might assume you're taking a later exit. This keeps the machine upright and so provides more grip, making emergency braking safer and more effective, and helps avoid any diesel spills, which will likely be on the left-hand side of the lane." Or does it? Let's run through these points one at a time, and we'll get the easy one out of the way first of all. Let's talk about the left-hand side of the lane fuel spill theory. Now, this really does need challenging. Spills follow centrifugal, I know there is no such thing, but we'll use it as it's a handy term, centrifugal force acting on the spilling vehicle. So if a vehicle turns right, the vehicle will spill to the left-hand side. If it sloshes out whilst it's turning left, it will be deposited to the right-hand side. precisely where that spill occurs will depend on whether there are lanes and whether the vehicle stays in lane. And we should also remember, of course, that the vehicle might not be going in the same direction as us. It could be cutting across our roundabout at right angles. So it will be right across our path. The idea that we can plan a route that avoids spills because they're on the left-hand side. Excuse me, I'm a bit hoarse this morning. That's a risky strategy at the very least. Now, it's not so long ago that I picked a rider out of the long grass on the far side of an island when he turned right and discovered that a big spillage just out of sight around the back of the island. So he was turning right, a big lean angle, and dropped it on the spill. Now, it's not just diesel that actually is the problem either. Petrol is just as slippery. It's just less obvious than diesel when it's fresh. It looks like water. Excuse me. And it evaporates quickly. Now, this spill here is actually hydraulic fluid. And you can see the roundabout's closed as they mop that particular one up. Now, fortunately, oil slicks on roundabouts, they are far rarer than they used to be, thanks to catch tanks and better sealing caps as well. In the real world, the spill can be just about anywhere on the island. So the only thing you can say for sure is if you cannot see the surface, you cannot trust it. And basically, that's exactly the same rule we would apply to any other curved section of road, not just a motorway. Right, okay, so next problem then. Any drivers on the left might assume you are taking a later exit. I'm not quite sure what they actually mean by that, because if they assume that you're taking a later exit, presumably they would wait till you are clear, unless they think that you're turning right because you're tight to the island and they pull out and you're actually going straight on. The problem is that straight lining a roundabout means of ignoring the highway code. Now, this is an earlier diagram from the highway code, which actually shows a 5-arm roundabout. The current one has gone back to showing a simple 4-arm roundabout, but many roundabouts are more complex than that. And the reason for having a road code in the first place is it standardizes behavior. And if everybody uses the same behavior to get around the roundabout, it means we can look at another road user and understand what they are doing. We often talk about sort of positioning for information, because positioning is itself a kind of language. It's not just our choice of lane or the use of an indicator that sends a signal to other road users. When we straight line a roundabout, we are effectively cutting across the highway code route. So basically what we would be talking about here, if I just sort of zoom in, is sort of starting down here on the blue car route, cutting across to the island and exiting on the blue car route. So straightest possible line. And that's the problem. It starts to confuse people. Where are you going and why are you doing that? So as bikers, we tend to be quick to criticize a driver who doesn't follow the highway code themselves. Maybe they don't bother the signal and they confuse us. But why do we expect different treatment for ourselves? I have never understood that one at all. But even before we get to the, what's the motorcyclist doing stage, we have to be seen. Let's have a look at this roundabout. This is one of my favorites. This one's actually out in Newtown in Wales. It's on one of my Welsh training routes. Now, at first sight, this looks like that there's a sort of a straight line across the roundabout from bottom to top there. But what we're doing there is making an assumption that the driver that's on our left can see us. Look at the buildings, look at the width of the pavement. It's a really narrow pavement. The buildings come almost as far as the give way line. So if this looks like a candidate for a straight line, but we would keep left, clip the island and exit as straight as possible. The problem really should be obvious. The closer that we approach this island here on the left, the more we restrict lines of sight between ourselves and the waiting driver. So that's our next problem. If there's any kind of obstruction, hedgerow or building, when approaching a side road on our left, we would hardly ever think that a tight to the left approach to the bend ahead is a good idea. So why do we persist in thinking that straight lining a roundabout is a good plan? And that's even before we go on to consider the sort of the blind spot created by a driver's A pillar. Finding an approach where we can be seen matters far more than keeping ourselves to a straight line. Right, the third point was this keeps the machine upright, so provides more grip, making emergency braking safer and more effective. Well, there's an obvious flaw in this argument, isn't there? Straight lining doesn't eliminate the turn. Go back and have a look at the roundabout lines here. You can see, if the island is big enough, there is no way that you're going to be able to go straight on except by driving straight over the top of the island. And we clearly have to change direction then to enter and exit the roundabout, as well as to negotiate it. So, where's the more grip from being upright idea? It simply doesn't work. And it sometimes goes wrong in a different way. Now, have a look at this clip, which came from a video that I covered some years ago. This rider unfortunately discovered that the threat to her wasn't a vehicle emerging from the left because she was over by the island. It was an unseen queue just on the far side of the island. And if you just look here, you can actually see the back of the car. Now, unfortunately, she didn't see the car, of course, until she was well on her way around the island, and she was going reasonably quick. And she hit the brakes as soon as she saw the vehicle ahead, but she still crashed. So there's a simpler answer to this. Rather than pretend that we get more grip by keeping more upright, we could just ride more slowly. The benefits are immediate. We have more time to assess the situation. And thanks to physics, the speed versus stopping distance issue, we find it easier to take evasive action. Remember, if we halve our speed, our stopping distance drops just 1/4 of it was. And this also helps with changing direction too. The bike has less inertia and steering inputs become more effective. So if we do need to swerve, it's much easier to do so. What we're doing here is we're working the physics in the right way by slowing down, and it brings far greater benefits in terms of keeping our options open than trying to straighten the line out around the island. And there's one other thing that from years of dispatching I've always noticed is that the areas immediately adjacent to curbs and roundabouts are usually the dirtiest part of the road. They accumulate the marbles of road debris and stone chips, plus all the sort of bits of metal and broken glass. They'll get all swept there by car tires. So straight lining a roundabout puts us onto the highest risk, or puts us closest to the highest risk area for punctures. Right, okay, so fourth point, when safe to do so with care. Let's examine this. Yeah, I mean, it sounds logical enough, doesn't it? And it's the sort of objection that I always get when I talk about actually not straight lining roundabouts, but just slowing down. You can use this kind of qualifier. But watching riders who do straight line roundabouts, it seems to me that most of them actually don't pay a great deal of attention to their safety on a roundabout. They believe it's sort of a fun place to get a knee down, as this rider discovered as he hacked around the roundabout from out of the blind spot behind a sign to discover that the driver had pulled out in front of him, presumably committing himself at the point where the rider was hidden by the roadside furniture. Now, the thing is, some years ago, I looked at the crash maps where accidents are actually plotted. We can get 20 years of data on some of these, and I was really surprised to discover just how many motorcycle crashes there are at or around roundabouts. Some happen on the way up to the roundabout, and I suspect are where vehicles are changing lines to get into the correct lane at the last minute, and maybe the motorcycles in the blind spot or filtering between lanes. But many actually happen clearly where vehicles do pull out in front of the motorcycle negotiating roundabouts. So roundabouts are clearly risky places, and we only get around them by managing those risks, and that being the conclusion that we draw. Shouldn't we be looking to minimize those risks and not just attempting to sort of manage them at an acceptable level? That's my thinking. Now, as it happens, I am just about to publish a new article in my Fresh Start Core Skills series. It will be up on my Facebook and my Coffee page in a couple of weeks. And this will be on roundabout techniques under that banner. But it should be up on my motoskills.co.uk website, which is part of the survival skills ecosystem, hopefully either today or tomorrow. Right, okay, so that brings us towards the end of the show. Before I go, though, there is a way that you can continue learning. If you've learned anything from this article, you can have a look at my e-course. Now, the e-course, I've just put together a dedicated website for that, for online coaching and the e-course. It's motoonline.co.uk, so easy to remember. You can find information about the 8-week e-course, also my 1-hour online coaching sessions. Now, the e-course does consist of 8 sections. They are delivered online. I have notionally said it's 8 weeks long, but somebody's just taken 6 months to finish it, but you'll hear from them in a moment. Each section contains 8 to 10 modules. You can work through this obviously at your own pace. There's a mix of theory, questions to get you thinking, some cunningly designed practical exercises based on my own on-road training that you can try out on the road. Plenty of interaction. There are resources to download, pictures to analyze, videos to watch. You can ask your own questions. You can upload your own pictures. You can upload your own videos if you want to, and of course you can ask me questions. Now, each course also includes 2 webinar style meetings to discuss how you're getting on, and at the end there's an informative 9th week for free and a series of book reviews. Now, I know a lot of motorcyclists are still very skeptical about online learning, despite the fact that it's proven in all sorts of fields, including one of the most demanding of the lot, surgery. So I'll just leave you with Brian's own words, just written 4 days ago as he reached the end of the course he started back in November. And he said, quote, "A brilliant course, Kevin, thoughtful, stimulating, refreshingly different, and always a clearly rational, reasoned approach, questioning established practices and attitudes, and coming up in so many cases with better ideas and more useful approaches to ride with better knowledge, greater safety, more confidence, and increased pleasure. Many thanks for this inspiring course." A couple of courses back, Ian said, "I'd just like to say how much I'm appreciating and enjoying this course. It's really making me think about the riding. The amount of time and effort you put in is incredible. Thank you so much. It really is very, very good." Nick said, "I second that." So right now, the e-course is £99. That's less than a tank of fuel per week. It's cheaper than your breakfast run on Sunday mornings too. So just remember, motoonline.co.uk, nice and simple. That really is it for today. So thanks to all of you who have looked in either live or on catch up. I got one comment here who talks about a Kawasaki Ninja H2. I have no idea why, nothing to do with the show. Anyway, you've been watching me, Kevin Williams from Survival Skills Rider Training. This has been Elevenses. Make a date to join me for the next show, which won't be next weekend. I am otherwise engaged on the Sunday. There may be a recorded show, but basically the next live one will be in 2 weeks' time, and then you'll get another roundup of news, views, and biking tips. Bit of a long show today, so thanks for staying with me. And if you are out there today, enjoy your ride on your bike, and then make sure you stay shiny side up. And I will see you for the next show.